Celtic face Swiss champions Young Boys of Bern tomorrow night, Wednesday, 8 o'clock at Celtic Park on Matchday 7 of this season's Champions League. And as everyone with a Celtic connection will know, it's a massive chance for Celtic to make progress in the new format of European football's top tournament. This is Tino with the County Kick-Off Show, joined here by Greg, all the way from Nova Scotia. Greg, what's your thoughts ahead of the big one?
Yeah, thanks very much for having us back on, Tino. It's an absolute pleasure to be back in the show, and what an amazing game to preview as well. Probably the biggest game in a decade or so under the lights at Celtic Park for basically to qualify for the knockout phase of the Champions League. So they've not really come much bigger. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere, a really good game, and just looking online today at some of the players' comments and managers' comments, I think they'll be very focused. I think they'll be very up for the game. And I also think it's a welcome change for the players as well, just away from domestic games and going back into Champions League. It'll bring the best out of our best players for me. And it's nights like this that sounds a bit cheesy, but you can become a Celtic hero in these nights, and you're just looking forward for certain players to step forward and possibly make a name for themselves, like Engels, Kuhn. So I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to it. And obviously, if you can maybe handpick the opposition, they're one of the lesser teams in the competition. But I think everybody's hopeful of a positive result. But as we speak through the show, I think there's got to be patience there. It'll be interesting to see how they set up as well. So I don't think it's quite as straightforward as maybe the bookies would make out, or the chat online. It's a foregone conclusion. We're going to have to be very, very focused tomorrow night. And I think patience could play a really key part in that as well.
Yeah, I think so. We spoke on the weekly show last night, and it was myself, Asim, Paddy and James, and patience was mentioned a few times. I think there's been this thing recently, it's almost become cliche, if Celtic aren't 3-0 up by half-time, people are losing their minds. That's been a wee bit flippant, but I think, on paper, as you say, Young Boys of Bern, zero wins, not even 0 wins, 0 points from 6 games. They've got a minus 19 goal difference. Their tournament's done. They're just playing out their fixtures, and we'll chat through shortly in terms of how they might approach it, but Celtic absolutely should be winning this game, but that's not to say it will be 2-3-4 by half-time. You might need to be patient. It might be nothing each at half-time. It might be a goal midway through the second half that sees you through, and 1-0 gets you through the same as 10-0 gets you through. So I think patience is the word. Just on that, so you might have seen some of the stats doing the rounds. If Celtic get no more points in this Champions League tournament, from this one and from Villa on match day 8, there's a tiny percentage we still go through on 9 points, but it is slim. A draw would take us on to 10 points and give you something like, I think it's a 27% chance, something like that. But the win tomorrow, which would take us from 9 points to 12 points, gives you a 99.9% chance of going through. And on that note, from a Celtic point of view, it's got to be all out for the win, hasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone in the Celtic dressing room is going out there to get a point. It's you have to go and get the 3 points tomorrow night. Yes, we still have one game to go against Aston Villa. That'll be a tricky game. You don't really want to go there having to get a result, to be honest. It would be lovely to go down south, already qualified, and let the fans have a bit of a jolly and have a go at Villa. But tomorrow, the team will be focused in going out, putting on a good performance and trying to get the 3 points tomorrow night. There's no room for manoeuvring that for me. I wasn't exactly sure of the stats you went through there, but I would much rather just get the 3 points tomorrow, and that's us heading towards Villa with no pressure on us, to be honest, Tino.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure of those stats myself. I was rattling off percentages there, but a lot of that's guesswork. As you know, Greg, 66% of all stats are made up on the spot, so that's what's happened there. But no, I think the focus will be in the one. I watched some of Brendan Rodgers' press conference earlier on. I thought there was a real focus and determination about him. Now and then Brendan Rodgers will come out with quips and different things. He'll be lighter at times and heavier at different moments. Yeah. He just seems real focused, and I'm thinking and hoping that that's the way his players are looking at it as well. We'll cut through the lineup just shortly, but again, something you mentioned just at the start there, it's a huge night for certain players in terms of their Celtic career, and I picked out a few last night who I think it's such a big moment for. I think it's Austin Trusty's biggest game in a Celtic shirt. I think he's got a bit to prove, given what happened at Dundee just a week ago. I think Arne Engels has a real opportunity here to shine. These games, this is why Arne Engels was signed. He's Celtic's record signing. Whether he likes it or not, he didn't pick the price tag, but it is what it is, and it brings its own pressure. And Nicholas Kuhn, and he's obviously not a summer signing. He's been here since last January. And he's had a massive game against Leipzig, by the way, played a huge part on that night, getting his 2 goals. But again, like Engels, like Trusty, these are the games he's here for. And listen, if we're being real about it, these players may well move on to pastures new at different points in the near or medium future. But for the here and now, their job is to impress in a Celtic shirt on these big European nights. Yeah. And I think it's a huge night, Greg, for those 3 as much as anyone else.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. For me, Trusty, he needs to... He was quite comfortable up until just recently. There's just been a few shaky performances in there, and I think it is. I thought he was very good at the weekend, and I was happy for him as well. But I think tomorrow night is a big night for him. Kuna's obviously the guy that's on form just now. If he's playing well, Celtic take over so much better. We've talked about the wide players loads and loads of times in the show, but for me, he is the main guy at Celtic. He's the guy you're looking to get the ball out to, and down that right-hand side is where a lot of Celtic's threat's going to come tomorrow. Maybe somebody we've not spoke about so much for me who's going to be massive tomorrow is Callum McGregor. And I think on nights like this, it's him that will set the tempo and the tone of the team. He'll be talking everybody through it. I think tomorrow, for me, Callum McGregor is absolutely key to Celtic winning the game. Him and Kuhn were the 2 I identified, but I also think there's a massive place for Arne Engels tomorrow to step forward. Yes, there's a price tag there. I think he has all the attributes to be a really, really good Celtic player. And I think tomorrow night, actually, his set pieces and his delivery into the box could be huge for Celtic. I really do.
Yeah, do you know, his delivery is exceptional. Dead ball or not, actually, I think just at the top of my head here to the chance he set up for Hatate at the weekend. He's out wide, but he just whips it low and hard with a bit of pace. It's a striker's dream. Maybe not Rio Hatate's dream, because he's obviously not managed to finish it off, but it's a perfect ball in to a really dangerous area. But you take that in addition to his corners and his free kick, and the whip and the pace that he puts on his deliveries, it's exceptional stuff. You're absolutely right to mention Callum McGregor. He doesn't need to prove anything as such. It's not a big night for him on that front. But he's also the Celtic captain and has been for a few seasons now. And he wants to be the Celtic captain that takes us through to knockout European football. He's played enough group stage stuff. He's done it for years and years in a Celtic shirt. But more often than not, we don't make out the groups, or we might qualify for a Europa or a Conference League and whatever else. But we're not renowned for knockout football in Europe in recent times. Yeah. And this is such a big opportunity for Callum McGregor. And I think he'll take the weight of that in a positive way, and he'll take the pressure to go and do what he can do tomorrow night to influence that. And that's just my point on Callum McGregor. Against Dundee, I don't feel he influenced the game much at all. No. And I'd say this is just a week ago. It's a very different test, though, Dens Park. Very physical challenge, some robust stuff from Dundee. And then you go to the Champions League stuff, where I'd like to think there'll be a lot of football played and a lot more high-level football, if you like, and stuff that will suit Celtic better. Separate conversation, but I don't think we deal with the physical stuff great at this moment in time, but maybe we'll pick that up in another episode.
Yeah.
But Callum McGregor, when he plays, Celtic play, but the opposite also applies. When he doesn't play, we generally struggle. And on that note, Greg, it is up to him as a skipper to roll up the sleeves and make things happen for the first whistle.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think he has come under some criticism in recent weeks, which is really unusual. We don't usually attach criticism and Callum McGregor together. But I would say he has. We've spoke about the rotation many times before, and he's never rotated. Maybe there's an argument there for some rest in the domestic games. But I just think, with no disrespect to Dundee or Ross County, but the recent games we've had, early start on a Saturday morning up north, Dundee on a Tuesday night, it's cold. This is a totally different game for the players. We're at home, we're under the lights, in front of a home crowd. As we've said already, this is why players come to Celtic. But Callum McGregor will be there to keep everybody calm, talking through everything, and hopefully keeping things ticking over. Just to go back very quickly to Arne Engels, I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you picked up on it at the weekend show that I listened to, but how he's starting to take up positions wider, which I think is a really interesting tactic. He's dropping out wider in areas to maybe try and cause an overload, or they've identified his delivery so good that he's getting into these areas and he's delivering crosses. So it'll be an interesting tactic that Celtic have kind of maybe worked on the last few weeks. And I think it's worth noting that, and I think he's done it really well. And it would also help Callum McGregor to try and free him up a little bit as well.
It is an interesting one. So Paddy picked up on something of that nature. He said he saw Engels drifting out to the left-hand side more often than we'd seen before, and it looks like it's maybe quite deliberate. And it brings us back to a point we were making about Brendan Rodgers 4-3-3. We're only, what date is this, the 20-something, 21st of January? We're only 3 weeks into the new year, and there's been a lot of stick Celtic's way, mostly because we get that poor result at Ibrox on the 2nd of January. And after that, a lot of people want to rip up the playbook that's got us so far this season. You know, we need to change it. We need to go 4-5-1. We need to go 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2, whatever it might be. And I've never bought into that because I've thought the 4-3-3 that Brendan Rodgers has adopted since he arrived back at Celtic Park has stood us in pretty good stead so far. But what I did concede was that there needed to be tweaks within the system. Now, what those tweaks would be, I don't know. You would need someone smarter than me and more knowledgeable as a football coach than me to pick up on those things. But I think there has been tweaks to the game. And I think the point you make about Arnie Engels is absolutely one of them. We've seen some tweaks to the system in Atalanta where Kun and Maeda were usually so high up the park and they remained so high against Dortmund. They started far deeper against Atalanta. So it's still a 4-3-3, but there's tweaks and nuances within that system. And I trust Brendan Rodgers to find those solutions. You know, it's something that even at times we won't see the differences, but there's subtle differences and they can make a huge difference to how it all plays out. Greg, what we'll do, we'll get to the lineup in just a second. Before we do so, a huge thanks to everyone who's joining us here on the live. Good to see a lot of the usual faces here, or usual names anyway. San Fran Celtic, Gypsy King, Jim Hunter, Thomas Dawson, various others. Great to see you guys here. Remember, if you do want to comment on the live pre- and post-match shows that we do, you do need to be a member of our YouTube channel, and a link to do so are in the show notes for this episode. Greg, I'm just going to catch a couple of comments before we go on. One here from San Fran. He says, maybe the couple of tough results recently were a good reality check before this massive game. I think we'll be focused and hungry. Gypsy King says, good quick start tomorrow. He thinks Hatate will turn up. Thomas Dawson. Thomas says, evening. I've listened to the press conference and feel like we will go out there like a cup final and drive for goals straight away. Hatate to score. So lots of positivity. And I think you've got to be positive, Greg. We're in an interesting Champions League group. You know, obviously it's the 36 league, or 36 team league that we're in. But Celtic have had 6 games so far and a mix of results. You've had that great start against Bratislava. You take the doing in Dortmund. You respond well at Atalanta. You get the draw. You have the Leipzig one, which was probably one of our best European performances in years. Then you have the draws against Bruges and Zagreb. It's been up and down, but you know, it is what it is. People talk about it's a failure if you don't qualify from this section. I don't believe Brendan Rodgers is quoted as saying that games at this top level are just never easy. You cannot just turn up and expect to roll over teams, whether it's young boys at the bottom or whoever finds himself at the top of this setup. Just before we do get to the team though, Greg, what do you think of how Celtic have responded to that night in Dortmund? That was match day 2. That's a demoralising defeat. It's hard to take as fans. Must be equally hard, if not more so, to take as players and to respond in the way they've done. So what do you think about how the players have picked themselves up since that night?
I think the key was Atalanta to go there straight after it. And you could easily, like there was chatting on WhatsApp, this could be 3-4-5-0 again. And if we go out and we try and have a go at them. But Brendan Rodgers tweaked and we got a really, really good point. And I actually think Brendan Rodgers has been really clever the whole way through the Champions League campaign. I thought the Bruges game was absolutely key as well, because I actually thought they were a really good side. And I think that's a game in years gone by that we drop points and probably lose. But I think the point in the night, we had a wee go at the end of the game, but nights like that actually show the Celtic team maturing. And I also think Brendan Rodgers has almost picked his way through this campaign. And I think for weeks, he'll never come out and say it, neither will the players, but they'll definitely have had one eye in this game. And whether that's slightly hindered the domestic form, I'm not sure. But I think he's rotated his squad to get to this point and really have his team tuned up for tomorrow night, to be honest. So I think he's been quite clever, quite coy in the way they've kind of tackled the Champions League, especially after the Dortmund game, which you draw a line under and you move on. It was what it was in the night. But since then, it's been actually a very mature Celtic team that's kind of plotted their way through. I would even say that about Zagreb. There was some criticism about not going there and having a go. But again, you then lose that game. I think it's been a mature performance. And as I say, I think they're tuned up for tomorrow night.
I like the way that Brendan Rodgers has repeated quite a lot recently. If you can't go and win these games, make sure you don't lose. And I think that's a maturity. And maybe this is what differs Brendan Rodgers from Ange. Ange is win or bust. That's it. It's all or nothing. I love Ange and I continue to enjoy watching what he's doing, albeit he's struggling just now. You know, he plays an exciting brand of football, but sometimes exciting football gets you nothing. And I think Brendan Rodgers could have been more gung-ho against Bruges, could have been more gung-ho against Zagreb and come away with 0 points. You've got 2 points from those games, and the other 2 points that put you on 9 right now rather than 7 and give you such a huge platform to kick on from
Exactly.
tomorrow night. In terms of the team, Greg, lots of folk think that the lineup from Saturday was a dress rehearsal, and I can see you nodding. I'm agreeing as well. I think that's what it looks like. So on that note, do you think we're going to see the exact same 11? And if so, what's your thoughts on it?
It's a bit boring, but yeah, I think it is the same starting 11. And I have been miles off the last few times we've done starting 11s, Tino, especially in the left back situation. But yeah, for me, it's the exact same team. The only area you could look at possibly is Bernardo coming in for either Hatate or Engels. I wouldn't personally. I feel a wee bit sorry for Bernardo. I like him. I think he's probably been a victim in terms of the constant but necessary rotation in that area. I think it's probably impacting him the most. Hatate has been poor, but in these nights you have to play Hatate. I think he comes alive more in the Champions League. He'll take chances, he'll look for through balls, he'll involve our wide players. So for me, it's going to be the same midfield three and the same starting 11. I don't see any changes. I would be really, really surprised if there was a curveball like an Aidan instead of Kyogo or anything like that. I just don't see it. And with the Bailly situation just now, he looks like he's pretty much gone. So he's not going to feature. For me, it'll be Taylor. So yeah, I don't see any changes, Tino, and I'm happy with the starting 11. I think if you ask Brendan Rodgers his strongest 11, I think that's what it is right now.
I think Brendan Rodgers and a lot of fans would think this is our best 11 at this moment in time. And yeah, you'll always have the ongoing debate about the midfield three. There's a few options in there. Some guys really like Bernardo, really like Luke McCowan, and I think they're talented players too. I think if really pushed on it, I think the three of McGregor, Engels and Hatate are the best three. Liam Scales has done himself no harm. He's probably a wee bit unlucky to find himself on the sidelines right now. But Trusty and CCV are the two, and so on it goes throughout the team. Let's stay on Rio Hatate for a minute, because he's a guy who's catching a lot of headlines. There's a lot of frustration about Rio Hatate, which I understand. I'm a massive fan. I think he's a brilliant player, and he's got moments of magic in him. He's also got moments of frustration. Similar but different to Daisen Maeda, who's got magic and frustration, his countryman. But Rio Hatate has it all in his locker, and it's just a consistency that he struggles to find. That's the thing. We've seen some brilliance from him in a Celtic shirt. He's had some big performances. He's turned up against Rangers. He's turned up in some European games. He was big against Leipzig from memory. But there's an element of risk in playing him. The manager knows that he's the guy that can be the key to a game like this. He can unlock defences. He's also the guy that can concede possession quite cheaply. So there's lots going on for the manager, but overall, do you feel Rio is a risk worth taking?
Yeah, I do. I think domestically, a lot of teams have gone, and Rodgers talks about it as well, this man for man in the middle of the park, and they just try and stop Celtic getting into half turn. And if you watch Celtic, the whole way of getting from back to front quickly is getting players in the half turn, which he's so good at, and so many teams domestically are trying to counter that. I'm absolutely in agreement with you. In Leipzig game, I thought he was excellent. Some of his through passes were incredible that night. But I just think in Europe, he'll get a chance. He'll get more time in the ball. He'll get more chance to look for intricate and through balls, etc. I don't think he gets as much as that domestically, especially when we go away. It's tight parks, and you've got three very physical players in the middle of the park. I don't think it suits Hatate, and I think he's fell victim of that over the last couple of weeks. And he has been off form. I don't think you can get away from that. But I'm hoping tomorrow night we see a different Rio Hatate. I really do, and I hope we do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's ongoing chat about how Celtic have managed things in recent weeks. It's been a bit disjointed. I think that's fair to say. Obviously with the tough start to the year, 2nd of January at Ibrox. Since then, Celtic have won 4 and drawn once. So if you hadn't watched any of those games, if all you done was listen to the noise online, you could be forgiven for thinking Celtic have lost 6 on the bounce since the turn of the year, to be honest with you. But it's fair to say that we haven't been at our free-flowing best, and we've not yet replicated some of the great stuff we've seen earlier on in the season. Leipzig game's a great example. We were flying that night, flying against Aberdeen in the semi-finals of the League Cup at Hampden, and various other games. We've not quite got back to those levels, although I thought Saturday night against Kilmarnock was a good nudge towards that, a good nudge towards getting back to that place. We created so many chances. And for me, that's the big thing. If you are not creating the chances in the first place, that's a concern. But I can more than make my peace with the fact that on any other day, it might have been 4-5, 6-1 against Killie, given the creativity of the team on the night. And that's really encouraging. And I'll ask you, Greg, the question I asked the boys last night on the weekly show. Do you think the manager has been managing the squad towards this game. We've known for a long time how important this game is. You know, we've had a fair break since the last one, and there's been a lot of things to distract you, let alone the Rangers game and the various fixtures that pile up at this time of year. But do you think Brendan Rodgers has been managing the squad, dropping guys in and out, resting guys, whatever, rotating, whatever modern term you want to use, with a view to being at peak levels for this game here tomorrow night?
Yeah, I do. I 100% do. I think we knew December and January. I mean, the schedule's horrific. There's so many games, and he's had to rotate the squad. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, with the magnitude of this game going into tomorrow night, I don't think there's any doubt about it that he's kept one eye on the game. He knows exactly the team he wants to play there if he's got everybody available to him, and he's tried to plot his starting 11s to give guys some rest time. And of course, it's going to have a detrimental impact on the team. That you're going to lose the flow. You're going to lose fluidity within your team. That happens when you players are coming in from the cold slightly, and you're playing with different players during the game. I think it was touched upon at the weekend. So yeah, I definitely think he's had one eye in this game and had his starting 11 tuned up for going into this game tomorrow.
Yeah, I've no doubt about it, and that just makes perfect sense. I mentioned, you know, we've dropped points at Ibrox, we drew with Dundee, we drew with Dundee United. I'm just going to be frank, in the bigger picture, that doesn't matter. When you're 13 points to the good in the league, that is not important. And all the hard work you do in the first part of the season to get 13 points ahead is what gives you the luxury to potentially drop some points and rotate your squad and make sure guys are fresh for what is the most important challenge. And the here and now is Young Boys of Bern tomorrow night. That is the most important game in Celtic's calendar. It's the biggest game of the season. You could debate that it's the biggest game in over a decade for Celtic in terms of Europe. We've not played knockout football since we played Juventus under Lenny in 2013. So there's 10, 11 years have passed since then, and I think it's time to really address that, and I do think we've managed it well. We'll go back to Celtic in a minute, Greg, but I want to ask you what you think we're going to get from Young Boys. Just to recap, as mentioned, they're rock bottom of the group, 0 points from 6, minus 19 goal difference. They are 9th out of 12 in the Swiss Super League. They've not had a good time of it in the season so far. They are just fresh off the back of a winter break. They've had a break since the 15th of December. They've had one league game since then at the weekend, which they drew nothing each with the bottom side in the league. They have appointed a new manager, a guy called, I think it's Giorgio Contini, and he seems to be an experienced guy. What will he do? What would his approach be? What would your approach be if you're taking over a team who are clearly bereft of confidence and struggling? How would you address this one tomorrow night?
Sorry, Tino, you're just breaking up slightly there, but I think it's for them. A win to Daniel's very dangerous in terms of they've got nothing to lose coming to Parkhead. They can come here and give it absolutely everything. They've got nothing to lose. As I said, they're rock bottom of the group. They can't go anywhere any further within the Champions League. They are struggling for form. There's no doubt about it. I look back at some of the results. I do hear they like to play that aggressive high press. It's whether they come and have a go at Celtic or whether they sit in and play the low block. I was thinking about it earlier in my head. I'm not sure which one I would rather, because I think Celtic's pace in the counter-attack is absolutely devastating. And in a way, I think if they come and press us high and we can play through them quickly and get round the high press, then we'll absolutely devastate them with our pace going the other way. However, in recent weeks, we have struggled a wee bit when teams have come out and maybe pushed us and played that high press. We've struggled with it a wee bit. And it depends how physical they are as a team, because there's no getting away from that. In the last few weeks, we have struggled with that. So we need to be very wary of that and very mindful of that. And I think there will be, and Rodgers always says this, there's going to be times in the game we're going to have to defend and accept pressure on us. And it'll be about the crowd getting behind the team and not panicking. And I think that's where the likes of Callum McGregor within that team will be absolutely crucial.
And you'll always get spells in any game against most opposition, but certainly, you know, European level opposition where you don't have it all your own way. So, you know, you could start well, you could have a great half hour and then have a 10, 15 minutes before half time where it's not quite on your side or going your way. And that's where the fans have got a huge part to play. And I'll just highlight a comment from Tommy Dawson, who says the crowd will be crucial too. Fans who don't normally sing need to join in and get Celtic Park sounding like it did under Martin O'Neill again. There's been a lot of chat, you know, and I think the North Curve or the Green Brigade released a statement last week about trying to get that atmosphere back. And maybe there's a bigger picture at play as to how we do that. But it is important, Greg, for all in attendance to be fully behind the team. However the game's going, we might lose an early goal. That can happen in football. And however it's going, we do need to fully support the boys on the night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think European nights at Celtic Park are so special, no matter who you're playing. And I fully expect I'm devastated I'm not going to be there tomorrow night. But I think the atmosphere will be crackling. I think it'll be a brilliant night. And yeah, the fans do need to get behind the players. There has been some moans and groans the last few weeks. I don't personally understand it, but everybody's entitled to their opinion. I had that chat with my dad over the weekend. He can be partial to a little moan at times about Celtic. And I'm just kind of like, look at the bigger picture and where we're at. Like, what I would hate to see us doing really poorly and behind in the league and not winning the League Cup and out of the Scottish Cup. I mean, my goodness. So I think we have to look at the bigger picture. But tonight, I think tomorrow night will be a really special one at Celtic Park. And as I say, I'm a bit gutted. I'm not going to be there. But I fully expect the fans and what the last comment there need to get behind the team and make it a really good atmosphere, because that will raise the players' performances as well, obviously.
I think so, and I expect it to be a crackling atmosphere. I think it'll be one of those ones where we're all unified from the get-go. And I just think it has been up and down. And as you say, everyone's entitled to their opinion. You know, some people have been a bit out of sorts in recent weeks as to what they're seeing in the park. But I just think tomorrow night presents a real opportunity for all of us to come together. I'm sounding more fluffy than I want to be here, but you know what I mean? I think there's an opportunity for fans, players, coaches alike just to be all in it together and really boost the team onto what could be a really special night. Just to finish off on Young Boys in terms of the chat on them, a couple of players that we well know of. There's Cedric Itten, who had a couple of years at Rangers, very forgettable, didn't have any real impact as a striker at Rangers, but he's part of their team and maybe I'll start the game tomorrow night. There's also Sadie Yanko. Do you remember him? Played under Lenny in 2013, a fullback, but he's injured. He won't make the game, so unfortunately he'll miss out on this occasion. That aside, I don't know much about their individuals, nor am I going to. I was thinking, before this episode, I'll dig into their players and who might be their danger men and who won't. But the reason I've not is because I think ultimately this all comes down to what version of Celtic turn up. If the best version of Celtic turn up and the best version of Young Boys turn up, we win. That is the bottom line. And I think on that note, it's very much within Celtic's gift to go and just have a real impact on this game from the word go. And on that, Greg, I'll get to your scoreline prediction just in a few moments' time. But before that, how do you think Celtic set up and go for it? Did they go all guns blazing? Did we try and get an early goal? Did we be patient? How do you go and approach it?
Yeah, I don't know who it was in the comments, but I think Celtic will go for it straight from the off, and I think they'll try and get an early goal. I think it'll be very, very attacking from early on. I don't really see them playing it any other way than that. Going back to Young Boys, it depends how they set up as well, and I think Rodgers will be interested to see that within the first 10 minutes of how they play, whether it's at a high press or they just sit in. But I do expect Celtic to go after them very early. And I think the atmosphere will lend itself to that. So I'd be surprised if we weren't really at the get-go from the off. And hopefully, if you can get that early goal, it could be a really special night. I think it was maybe Paddy that said it recently, that Celtic kind of are due to give somebody a doing. And it could be tomorrow night. And we have to be respectful. We don't want to get to this stage, it's 0-0 and people are losing the head. But tomorrow night is an opportunity. I think you're absolutely right. If Celtic's best version of them turn up, Celtic win the game comfortably for me.
I think this is you priming me for your 6-1 scoreline prediction. But I'll get to that in a minute. Just on Brendan Rodgers briefly, before I do get your scoreline, and for anyone tuning in the live, let us know what you think the final score will be and we'll share them before the end of the episode. But for Brendan Rodgers, Greg, this is why he came back to Celtic. He was quite upfront about it on his return, last summer or a year ago in summer, and he's been there, done that in terms of domestic football at Celtic, lifted trebles and trophy after trophy, and that's something that he continues to do. But there is no doubt that European success is a fairly glaring omission on his CV. He's not managed at Celtic or at Liverpool before us or at Leicester after us. He's not had any great success there. And he was asked, what it would mean to him personally to make progress. And he's always quick to play that down and say, it's not about me. But as an individual, as a driven and focused professional, he absolutely wants to make sure that under his watch, Celtic do make progress. So how big a night is it, for him to potentially take us through the knockouts for the first time in a long time?
Absolutely massive. It's absolutely huge for Brendan Rodgers because he has got that slight mark against his name in terms of his European record at Celtic. So I think he sees this opportunity with this group of players, with the fixtures the way they've fallen. he's seen this as an opportunity to put it right, and he keeps on saying, this is why I came back. We need to move forward in Europe. It's fine domestically, winning leagues, winning Scottish Cups, League Cups, that's brilliant. But we have to progress in Europe and become a better club within the European sphere, because in years gone by, we've not been competitive, and we've gone into a lot of games without any hope. So I think the fact that we have competed in pretty much all the games apart from Dortmund, obviously, is really refreshing. And I think Rodgers and the players deserve a lot of credit. But yeah, Rodgers, 100%. This will be massive for him tomorrow night, and that's why I think he'll have the team so tuned up.
Yeah, I think he'll be really focused, and that'll be reflected in his lineup. The group overall, we've talked about how bad the Dortmund game was, and it was really bad. It was a real painful watch at the time. Yeah. But since then, you used the word maturity, and I think that's exactly how Celtic have responded. We've only conceded 2 goals in the 4 games since then. Let me get them right. So one was Leipzig, and the other one was Bruges. 4-1 win and 1 each draw. And that side, we've kept a couple of nothing each clean sheets against Atalanta away and Zagreb away. So, there's real maturity there. As I said before, if you can't win, don't lose. And it seems that the players have taken that on board. How do you feel, or how would you feel, Greg, if for whatever reason we don't get the result tomorrow night, say we get the draw, and we need to go to Villa Park next week, is it the 29th? To go there against what is on paper a top 4 Premier League side. How would you feel if we needed to go there and get something? Are this Celtic side capable of going down there and pulling off a result?
In short, yes. And I think Rodgers will not miss when he goes back down there. I think he'll want to put on a good performance against an English club. And I actually said in our WhatsApp earlier, I would fancy us to go and get a point at Villa if we needed to. I really do. I think Celtic have that in them to go down there and get the result. You don't want to have to go and do that, though. Ideally, we're going down there with the pressure off. The players can go and show. And I always think when it's a Scottish club playing against an English club, it brings that... It brings an extra area to the game, do you know what I mean? And I think Celtic would want to go down there and prove a point, not just the manager, but the players. It's also a platform for them to possibly, if they've got thoughts of going to English Premier League or the likes of Kuhn wanting to get into his national team, all these things are stepping stones. If you go down there and put on a good performance, put on a good show as an individual, then you're right in the shop window as well. And as Celtic fans, we need to accept that at times players are going to come here for a couple of years and do a Matt O'Reilly and move down, and all the best of them if they want to do that. But it's games like tomorrow, and if we have to go to Villa, these are the kind of games that big players have to step forward for. So I just had a sneaky wee feeling when I seen the fixtures coming out that we would go down to Villa, and I think we'll get a result. But we'll focus on tomorrow night first and foremost. But it'll be a great occasion if we're going down to Villa and the pressure is off. To be fair, it'll be a really good occasion.
Yeah, it'd be nice to just go down there for a jolly. And you're right, I've got ahead of myself. I've got too excited. I've got lots going on here, but I think Villa will take care of itself. And as I say, hopefully we've got a bit of comfort, once we head down there and we can just play with our freedom. But there's no doubt Brendan Rodgers won't want to give anyone in the English media the chance to snipe back at him. I think he's had enough of that over the years, and he'll always want to prove a point down there any chance he gets. Greg, I'll come to just some final comments and scoreline predictions before I get your own. Gypsy King, I don't have a score, but he thinks we'll see a Japanese scoring treble tomorrow. Maeda, Hitati, Kyogo. I'd love to see it. San Fran Celtic, he's gone for 4-0 to Celtic. Gaza West, 4-1 to the Hoops. We've got, Gypsy King has given us a score. He's gone 4-0, so good to see. San Fran would love to see Engels get a Champions League goal tomorrow night. He did get the one against Bratislava, didn't he? The penalty. It'd be great if he could add to that. Shane O'Sullivan, he's gone for 3-0. The fans will make it a fortress. And Shane is heading over from Boston for the game. I'm hoping to tie in with Shane before the game, so hopefully we can make that happen. And then beyond that, if we do qualify or get through, Eugene says we could face Man City in the playoffs. Easy. Beat them. Then it's the minnows of Bayern or Dortmund. An absolute breeze. It'd be nice to get Dortmund and just reset the record, wouldn't it, Greg, and put a few things right. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll see how it goes when we get to that. What's your own scoreline prediction for this one, Greg, and why?
Yeah, I think is it Shane O'Sullivan? I think 3-0 tomorrow. I think we'll win 3-0. Confident of that, and I wouldn't be against the Kyogo Maeda Hitati tagline as well. So I quite like that score prediction. But 3-0. And I think what Callum McGregor said in his press conference today, let's not be the nearly men. Let's get the job done tomorrow and go down, in your words, Tino, and have a jolly against Villa in a week or so.
Yeah, I think there is a real determination. I've watched a few of the players' comments. I've seen Arne Engels talking about the fact that he believes Celtic absolutely deserve to be in the knockouts. There's a real focus around things, and I think we'll see that reflected. I'm going to go 4-0, Greg. I'll be accused of arrogance or whatever, and what you basing that on? I'm basing it on the fact that as much as Celtic have been a bit up and down, we've seen definite signs on Saturday night on the big expansive park at Celtic Park that there's just, on our day, we can play some really good stuff. And I think we've also got the players that absolutely thrive on this stage. I think Rio Hatate sometimes can't be bothered by Ross County away or Dundee away, which isn't quite right, but it is what it is. Players are driven and motivated by these big nights. They know that the world is watching. Some guys will see Celtic as a stepping stone, and if we're being real about it, that is what it is. And on that note, the Arnie Engels and the Austin Trustees and the Nicholas Coons and whoever else need to impress. This is their opportunity to do so. And I think we'll see that reflected in the performance. I think we'll get a win and a big performance tomorrow night, and I'm going to go for 4-0 Celtic. So let's see how it all plays out. Greg, we're starting to wrap this one up. So your final thoughts all the way from Nova Scotia.
Yeah, as I say, I'm really gutted that I'm not going to be there tomorrow night because I think it'll be a great occasion. I think if we get an early goal, it could be a really special night. But what a great position to be in. As I said, years gone by, the Champions League, we're not competing, but this year we're in it. We're just so close to that next step of knockout European football. And I really hope the players turn up tomorrow, and I really do think they will. So every day it's go and enjoy yourself. Very, very jealous. And hopefully it's a really good night at Celtic Park. I might need to take some advice from Myth and get a couple of cans in for the game tomorrow, if that's allowed.
If that's what's needed to settle nerves, mate, go for it. Listen, Greg, thanks for joining us all the way from Canada for this one. Thanks to everyone who continues to join us in the live, and thanks to those who continue to comment during the shows. It makes a big impact, and it's really helpful for what we do, and it really gets some great conversations going. Finally, thanks to those who continue to listen to the Celtic Exchange podcast. Remember, if you do so, to check out the celticexchange.supercast.com. There is a link to that in the show notes, where you can sign up for ad-free listening, early access to the weekly show, and the chance to win a stunning framed print of the very moment that Celtic lifted the League Cup final at Hampden last month. But in the meantime, from myself and Greg, thanks for tuning in. Let's hope for a brilliant night at Celtic Park tomorrow. We'll see you again on the other side.